So I am super excited to introduce Jenny Just, our next speaker, for a multitude of reasons. But many of you may not know this, but this is her first official public speaking event in over 30 years, and her second interview ever, which her first was for Forbes for our cover issue last year. So give it up to Jenny Just. And Jenny, I mean, we have to ask, why speak to the media now after being behind the scenes for so long?
I think that's a good question. Well, we'll see after how today
goes.
What I'll be doing. I think there is, I used to say I have 4 kids and 4 companies, and I had priorities. And so that wasn't one of them. And I think today it's probably more important than ever that a woman in finance and technology gets out there to be a role model, and because there aren't that many. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of the under 30 here that I'm seeing that could be those role models. So I hope it's a new time, and hopefully some people will be inspired by some of the things I've done.
100%. And what a role model you are. You have a history of not just breaking through, but breaking past the old boys club, first on Wall Street, where she was one of the first women to trade on the Chicago Board of Options, and then now in her next venture, Peak 6, which is basically a fintech for fintechs. It's a multi-billion-dollar firm, and even more impressive than that, she's crossed the ranks of Wall Street and the upper echelons of corporate America, and has entered the very, very exclusive ranks as one of our Forbes 400 cover stars, and she's one of only 23 women self-made female billionaires in the United States. So it's a huge, huge accomplishment, and we're so excited to hear from her today. So Jenny, because your story isn't as well known, let's start from the beginning. Take us back to starting on the Chicago Board of Options. At that time, there wasn't even a women's restroom within the vicinity of the men's restroom. So how did that condition you to kind of break through walls and get to where you are today?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Maneet, for having me. It's a real pleasure. Thank you, Forbes, for having me as well. My beginning was not visionary at all. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I wanted to work in Chicago. So when I graduated from the University of Michigan, we got one in the crowd all the way here. I interviewed at 3 firms, a bank, an advertising agency, and a company called O'Connor & Associates, which fortunately for me was one of the best in the options industry. And when I went to the firm, it was the first time people were dressing casual, so they were there in jeans and whatever, and I was like, this is awesome. And they had beer in the fridge and Haagen-Dazs in the freezer, so I was in. And from there, I went to the trading floor, which most of you probably have seen in movies before. They're exactly like the movies, huge rooms like this with round circles with tons and tons of very large men who are trying to scream over each other. And then a handful of us. So I actually didn't know that was going to be my job. I'm not sure if I had known what would have happened. But then I worked my way through, the company for several years, trading in different aspects. And when Swiss Bank came in to do a joint venture with the bank, I moved into something called over-the-counter equity derivatives, which is basically non-exchange traded product. And I was really lucky to help build a business in my 20s inside the business. So there was 2 of us, a gentleman they brought in from Goldman Sachs, and we started calling on corporate clients like Intel and Oracle and General Motors, and we were 20-somethings that they shouldn't really want to talk to, but they wanted to talk to us because O'Connor was sort of uncloaking for the very first time, and people knew they were the experts, so we were lucky to be part of that process.
So you capitalized on the moment, either knowingly or unknowingly, and you've done that again, right? Your company, Peak 6, operates as an umbrella of companies, so to speak. And I love, from the interview you did with Forbes, the opening line is, it should have been a movie. You get this alarming call from the SEC. Tell us what happened.
Sure. So I'll just back up a little bit. Our core trading, our core business, the heart and soul of Peak 6, is an options trading firm, and it's proprietary, so it's not that we take outside money, but we started with $1.6 million in 1997 and sort of never looked back. And the fortunate thing about that kind of business is it spins off money, hopefully if you're good at what you do, but it's hard to redeploy. It doesn't need a ton of capital, so we started doing other things. We had a hedge fund at one point that did have customers, and we built sort of the previous generation retail broker-dealers. So today we talk about someone like Robinhood. Well, at the time, it was Trade King, Trade Monster, Zecco, and we were one of them called Options House. And so we had customers who would use our technology to buy and sell stocks. And the technology behind Options House that we used was a company called Penson, which was public. And on a Friday, we got a call from the CEO and asked if he could borrow money. And if your bank ever calls and asks if they can borrow money from you,
that's not a good sign.
That's probably not gonna happen. You gotta run, right? So all weekend we're waiting, like what's gonna happen? This is a public company. So the Securities Exchange Commission, sort of our regulatory body, calls on the money and says, we need $70 million by Friday or Penson is going away, which meant then all of our clients were gonna go away, as well as these other sort of middle, if you think about E-Trade and Fidelity, the other big guys at the time, all those other middle tier broker dealers were gonna go away as well. And you also, I mean, this was 2012. It's a huge amount of money. And by the way, why are you calling us? There must be somebody else or some consortium that's gonna, well, nothing happened. And 13 days later, there was announced fraud, as a side note. Try and buy one of those businesses and see. But there was announced fraud, and we bought it. And we were really lucky, honestly, the way it turned out. We put our heads down and started rebuilding the technology. And when we rebuilt the technology for ourselves, we just built what we wanted, what we, as the customers of that kind of business, would have wanted. Robinhood, Wealthfront, Betterment came around, and they needed that technology, and we were the only ones who had built it at that point. So Vlad and Bijou on their skateboards in a strip mall in San Francisco needed somebody to do all the other work. They did the brilliant front-end work, and now here we came up and brought up the backside.
So I find that fascinating, right? You started out in the traditional Wall Street sense, and then fintech has come in and disrupted the industry, but they still came back calling to you and your business to help power the disruption ahead, right? And so on that note, right, fintech venture funding is $135 billion, almost a 200% year-over-year increase. Where are we in this space? Where is the innovation that's going to happen? Walk us through what we can expect to see in the next few years.
Sure. So Apex Fintech Solutions, we power over 220 companies today, and it's going to be somewhere in the 60 to 70% of the marketplace uses our technology. So we see a lot. I think some of the most interesting things we're seeing today, of course, there's a lot of people who are coming up and just getting crypto on, right? And then they're just going to get NFTs. And so that's already a pretty well-worn path. I think the idea of companies, I'll give you an example, a dating company, right? They've become all technological. They figured out how to match people using tech, but there's matching people, and then there's money involved, right? So how does money triangulate with any consumer product today? How does the company help the consumer execute on their money better? How does a dating company take two people who just met who want to go to dinner and help figure out how to split that bill in a comfortable way? Or how does it, when that dating company is successful matching two people, help them with moving in together and their budget and how they want to invest? So all of a sudden, a dating company can be in the fintech space really quickly, and I think some really smart companies are coming up with ways. And by the way, that can all happen simply because of the fintech revolution that has been going on. When Wall Street sat over here and the bank and money thing was all upstream or downstream, we couldn't touch it. With tech, you can touch it. So it gives another revenue stream for those types of companies. My example of the dating company that they wouldn't have thought about in the past.
Right. And a byproduct of that fintech revolution that we're seeing is this huge surge, this democratization of investing, right? Which I don't think we saw in the last several decades, right? And we've also seen with the rise of crypto, the millennial investor coming into the fray. We saw 13 million new traders get it. Teenagers, grandmas, you name it, everybody trading on platforms like Robinhood. So with this shift, what's the next phase that we're going to see in this democratization of investing through fintech?
So I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but I think the democratization, the interesting thing has been really happening for a long time. So when we became Peak 6, we put traders on the trading floor, and our test was, let's never put a trader on a trading floor and see which one wins, right? Because we thought, we grew up on a trading floor, you must have to do that to really understand what was going on. And turns out that they basically had pretty equal returns. Now we said, well, but I don't want to pay for an office in a different location, so if I can just keep them all on a screen, at this time in an office in Chicago. So this is in 1998, right? So we've been sort of trying to democratize ourselves. And then, of course, fast forward all the robos and everybody that have come along. I think that the only problem with this whole idea of democratization, that technology is allowing us to do it, is that it's not true democratization until 50% of the people are using the technology.
That's such a good point.
So today, of our over 20 million clients, 29.5, I asked this morning, % are women. It's okay, but not where it should be, right? And of our crypto clients, they're 7%. So it'd be like a country says they're open for, voting. Everybody can vote, and only 20 to 30% that show up are women. So I think we're not at the phase where, the tech is leading the hearts and minds, I think, of families, people, how they're thinking about using.
And why do you think we're seeing that lag in crypto investing for women, right? It's now a $1 trillion market. We spoke about this with Kathy Woods. She's a big investor in crypto, so she's definitely not in that percent of women non-investors. But what do you think the hesitancy is there?
Yeah, I think it's not unlike a lot of other things that happen in the fintech space. We tend to wait till we're comfortable, till we have enough information. Men tend to run in quickly and take the risk early, and without full knowledge, right? We're going to do our homework. It takes us a little longer.
A little longer.
But I think we don't, and I know, maybe I'll pre-address your, crypto fad or not.
Yeah.
I think crypto's here to stay. The problem is we don't know how big crypto's going to be when half the world isn't using it.
Right.
So who knows how deep, how wide the crypto space will ultimately be. We went to, our team went to a big crypto conference in last May, right when COVID sort of was away. And we had 3 women there, and there were like 4 women total at the biggest conference all last year in crypto. So we have a long way to go to see where crypto's going, and I would say what the other panelists have said before, which is if you don't have a wallet, just open up a wallet, right? Do it the right way with the ledger. You'll figure it out. It's awkward. Technology isn't great the way you do it. Through somewhere like Apex Crypto, it's easier because if you already have, let's say you had a SoFi account. 2 clicks, you're in. You can be trading crypto. Some places it's easier than others.
Right.
And certainly if you've never bought or sold a stock, right, you should do that tomorrow. And it doesn't have to be a lot of dollars. Remember, we have fractional shares today. So you can do $100 of Amazon, even though it's trading much more.
So we only have 23 minutes, and I went over last time, so I promised I would finish. But I want to quickly touch on the fact that you are a big poker player, and you've created an initiative to train 1 million women in Texas Hold'em. Why poker for women? How does it help us get ahead?
So I wasn't a poker player, to be clear. I've been surrounded by poker players my whole career, and I always thought, ugh, it's just another guy thing, wasting time. And as it turns out, it wasn't, and it was really quite brilliant. So in the last 2 years, I did learn to play. I've learned to play from some professionals, and we are teaching women every single day. We've taught thousands of women so far. You learn strategy. You learn to take risk. You learn to better understand capital allocation. It is a fascinating game. We have partnered with some schools, some of the MBA programs. We've partnered with senior women at law firms who are taking, the female lawyers are taking our classes with their clients and teaching those women. We are teaching, Morningstar, a 7,000 person firm internationally, and they're finding all different seniorities, all different ages coming together, networking around this game. And the most important thing about it is that you're practicing making decisions. And those decisions allow you to build confidence. And I will tell you, if you go to our 4th lesson and you don't end up in a meeting where you go, that was just like that hand of poker. It's fascinating way to have a tangible way to help you in your everyday work.
Wonderful.
So, yep.
All right, so we are out of time. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maneet.